4.5 minutes after 9 o'clock our time on BBF, home of the busiest bees in radio.
96 WCMF, that unfortunately closes out another edition of Import-Export.
It's because I'm just a schlep on a rock and roll band from Waxy on the number one hits weekend is 406 with the big racy one.
WSAY Radio 1370. Maureen McGovern.
WVOR FM 100 plays 50.
And welcome to episode 1 of the ROC Radio Podcast. My name is Scott Fitzgerald, and for a short time I was known as Fitz. I did mornings on Fickle 93.3 FM. Also did a short amount of time on some other stations like WCMF, WBEE, WPXY, and 98.9 The Buzz. I am a radio nerd my whole life. I'm not from Rochester. I grew up in South Florida, but I moved here about 20 years ago and really just became enamored with the radio landscape here in Rochester, New York. And, you know, going back to my childhood, I used to make those, you know, the radio tapes with my dual deck tape player, my boombox. Like, hey, WFTZ Fitz Radio. And I kind of joke about that quite a bit because it seems to be something that a lot of us radio people did. Radio was just something that we always knew we were going to do for the most part, even from a young age. So that's one of the themes they explore in this podcast, along with the personalities and sort of the evolution of the industry to some extent. South Florida was a number 11 broadcasting market. So we had great radio down there. And, you know, a lot of people, both in radio and in TV, went on to bigger things from the South Florida market. Some people have stayed there their entire careers, which I thought was interesting because one of the things that we learn in broadcasting school, or at least this is the way it used to be, is they say, hey, well, let me clarify. Going to school in Florida, and this is probably true in any large market when you go to school there, is they say, coming right out of school, you're not going to get a good job in this market. The market's too big. You're going to have to go to a smaller market, and you're going to have to work your way up to the big markets. And that was kind of like the way it was taught. That was the idea. And what I found, with a few exceptions in South Florida, most people, you know, would move through there on their way to bigger markets. Some people would stay just because of the weather. In Rochester, I thought was a very interesting case because a lot of people started out here and stayed here. Now, in the television market, like with the news, I noticed that there's a lot of young reporters that come and go. Like this is just a stepping stone on their way to New York or something, which is fine. But with the Rochester radio market, I feel like a lot of people, even the ones that came here from other markets, just fell in love with the area, fell in love with the community, and stayed here. And that seems to be a theme as well. So really one of the reasons, or the main reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I've gotten to know a lot of the personalities that really made Rochester radio such a unique and interesting broadcast market or radio market. And so I figured it would be cool to just kind of talk about radio, talk about, you know, their careers. And my style of interviewing is it's a loose, it's a little journey. You know, we might not cover all the things that you were hoping that we covered, but if you want to spend 45 minutes just with the personality, you know, that maybe you grew up listening to or you listen to now, it's a fun ride, and I invite you to listen to all the episodes, but you could just pick whichever ones you want. Maybe there's some radio personalities that you really, really enjoyed. My favorite guy to talk to is Jack Palvino, and, you know, I didn't grow up knowing the name Jack Palvino. He wasn't like a rock star to me like a lot of the jocks were back in the day. But I got to know him just through opening this studio, Rockvox Recording and Production in Bushnell's Basin. Free plug. I got to know him that way, and he does this thing called the Radio Roadshow, where he and Tom Proietti go around to assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and that, and they talk about the old days of radio, in the 60s and stuff like that, which is I find very interesting because, one, I'm a radio nerd, two, I'm a history nerd, so it was like the perfect storm to keep me captivated. And they came here and they did a recording, and it was really cool. So I had to have Jack on this podcast, along with other notable names that you will recognize. And, I'm hoping to do more than one season. I'm hoping to grab as many people as I can. There may be some issues where I can't get somebody because their management, especially if they're on the air now, their management may not want them to do it. I don't know why. I am no longer affiliated with any radio station or any radio group, so it's not like, there's some cross-contamination here or anything. But so that's what this season. Season 1 is an exploration into this podcast. I don't know how it's going to go. It's been fun. I've already recorded just 10 or so of these episodes, and it's been a fun journey for me personally, learning about how these men and women have navigated the industry of radio, and specifically in Rochester, New York, but in general, in their own personal ways. And so I invite you to subscribe and check out some of the videos that I'm posting. I will be posting on YouTube and on Facebook and stuff. You can follow this podcast at ROC Recording on Facebook. And you can also follow me at Fitzvox, Fitzvox, on social media platforms. And follow ROC Recording everywhere. The ROC Podcast Network has quite a few shows under its belt at this point. And they cover a lot of different subjects with a lot of very interesting personalities. And if you, too, would like to do a podcast, you can reach out to me at any time. Happy to help. All right. So without any further ado, the ROC Radio Podcast, a history of Rochester radio.